I want to
Good.
understand
Yeah.
this thing called passive income.
Okay.
Like first, how do you make the money? How do you get into that mindset? And then how do you invest it so you have passive income? All foreign ideas to me. But I used that radio show and just got obsessed. I interviewed authors, read all their books, got to pick their brains on my show,
Hmm.
and it changed my mindset. And I learned wealthy people have a different mindset. And because I kind of threw myself into it 100%, my mindset started to change too. So that's really how I got started.
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter.
Hey, you, this is Christina with Real Estate Breakthrough, and I just had a conversation with Kathy Fettke I want to just jump right into the middle of. Kathy and I were just saying, what I like to anchor in this show is we get things right in real estate and we get things wrong in real estate. What I said was, this isn't school. This isn't school where the only way you pass the test is by getting all the answers right, because that just isn't accurate. And you said,
I wonder if anyone's ever gotten it all right.
I know,
I've never met anyone who didn't make a mistake, but still, still passed, still got,
right.
still got to where they wanted to be.
Still got to where they wanted to be. I mean, one of the stories that I love to talk about is, and I can't remember whether it's LA Live or not, but in downtown LA, there was a story that was printed back at the time of the Great Recession of this guy who had been holding this land in downtown LA for over 20 years to develop it into a large multi-use complex. Think it was LA Live, but I could be wrong. And he ran out of money in the middle of the Great Recession. Surprise, surprise to all of us, right? And he ended up bringing in an Asian company for almost 50% of the value of the deal,
Wow.
right? So he got it wrong, but did he, or let's put it this way, he got it wrong or life helped him get it wrong, but then he found a solution, and the solution was to give away 50% of the deal, but he found a solution, and I believe the project finished. So I really think that's so important, because it's what I really like to anchor in this conversation is it's not about how smart you are, and it's not about that you like ace the test all the time in college. It's really about your capacity to face the creative solutions and the complexity, because you're going to get it wrong. There are going to be things that show up that are wrong, right? I use this all the time, which is, somebody asked Bruce Norris once, how many times do you have problems in your escrow? He said, out of every escrow? Yeah. Every escrow is good. He said, about 19 out of 20.
Yeah.
It's like,
That's all.
that's all. Just 19 out of 20, there's a problem of some kind. And in that vein, let's do these questions I have, because hopefully these questions really highlight that it is about your capacity to be with what is and manage what shows up, and not some score on a report card. So first, let's bottom line your history real quick.
Yeah, so my background and my degree is in broadcast communications. I really just fell in love with the news business. I also found out that the hours are brutal. There would be times I'd go in at 3 a.m. and sometimes work till midnight. So it ended up not being, and also kind of just depressing news. It's usually negative and sad. So when I met my beloved Rich Fettke, I was able to quit that job and be a stay-at-home mom, raise our kids, and it was like my dream. Then, so that went right? That part went right.
That part
Then
went
what
right.
went
Yeah.
wrong is he got diagnosed with melanoma. He noticed a freckle. He had been tanning a lot because he was a bodybuilder, and that turned into skin cancer. And at the time, they didn't think they had a cure, and they told him he had 6 months to live.
Yeah.
Now, what we thought we had done right is save, like we were told, 10% for emergencies, 10% for investment, 10% for charity, 10% for fun. Like we had the buckets and we were doing the thing. And what we found out is that doesn't go very far when you have an illness. And we also didn't have the right insurance. So they didn't cover it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we got depleted. So that was really, really tough. We had just bought a very large house through a 1031 exchange with my dad. That's really how I got started in real estate, is helping my dad with a 1031 that he needed to do. And we were living in that house, kind of renting to own, basically, was the situation. But it was a huge mortgage payment. And all of a sudden, we didn't have income. and we were tapped into our savings. We went through it very quickly. Very challenging time, obviously also terrifying, right? But
Yes.
I went into a different state of mind where I refused to believe the doctor was right. Rich also did that and only focused on 100% health.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, he's got to focus 100% on being healthy. I need to focus 100% on making money, so that he could do that, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know how. I'd been a stay-at-home mom for nearly 5 years at that point.
Yeah.
I still had a weekend radio show that was just fun and made me no money, but I wanted to stay kind of connected to the business. And I just thought, well, gosh, that's something I know how to do. I don't really know how to do anything else at this point, except to change diapers and cook and read bedtime stories and all of that. But
Yeah.
I
I
thought,
understand.
okay, I'll take this,
Yeah.
and I will at least start by learning. And I just started interviewing people who had made money quickly, and also sustainably and passively. It was like, I want all that. I want
Yeah.
to understand
Yeah.
this thing called passive income.
Okay.
Like first, how do you make the money? How do you get into that mindset? And then how do you invest it so you have passive income? All foreign ideas to me. But I used that radio show and just got obsessed. I interviewed authors, read all their books, got to pick their brains on my show,
Mhm.
and it changed my mindset. And I learned wealthy people have a different mindset. And because I kind of threw myself into it 100%, my mindset started to change too. So that's really how I got started.
Okay, you said something incredibly powerful that's not in my list of questions, but I really think we need to talk about, because it is this hidden gem. Wealthy people have a different mindset. We have heard that go by multiple times. There are books on it. There are personal growth workshops that don't necessarily talk about wealthy people and the mindset of wealthy, although there is a couple that do that specifically, but there are lots of workshops that talk about your mindset. So what did you notice? What was the secret sauce you noticed? Wealthy people have a different mindset.
Well, coming from not a wealthy mindset, kind of really a scarcity mindset,
Mhm.
uh, that was the first of it. Is I noticed that wealthy people weren't afraid to take risks. They were willing to try things and lose money. They didn't live in this fear of holding on so tightly, right?
Mhm.
There was a lot of generosity. I was shocked. I had only heard that wealthy people were selfish.
Right.
And yet, when I started to immerse myself in being surrounded by them, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. They donate a lot. They donate more than I make in a year. Like that's not true. That wealth, maybe some are, but what I was seeing was just a lot of generosity and this belief in this flow of money, that it wasn't stagnant, that it wasn't like you only get this much and if you lose it, it's gone. It was more like a river. It just flows, and it comes and it goes, but you can tap into it. And the way that you tap into it is absolutely mindset. And people might, I've heard comments before of like, oh, just get to the nuts and bolts of it. I don't want to hear about mindset. But I can tell you, if you don't have the mindset, you'll lose the money. You won't be able to keep the money. And I'm telling you, you've got to be able to tap into the flow of money that is, again, generous, that there's enough, that you could share it, that you could do good things with it, and believe that you deserve it and that it will flow to you, and to force your mind, practice imagining your life with the things that you want and the money that you need, not only need, but extra. What would that look like? So it has to start here, because if you can't envision it, and if your self-conscious hasn't accepted it, the thought of you as wealthy, it will reject it. It will find ways to
Mhm.
lose it.
It will work very hard to prove itself right.
Yes, that's right.
It does. It works very hard to prove itself right. And I've tried to just, I don't know that I described this well, but people who are in this transition, every once in a while, I kind of run into somebody and they're like, hey, and it's not like they say, hey, I'm going from this mindset to this mindset. They say, I don't really understand what's happening, but I do know I don't want to be this way anymore. It hurts me. My mind hurts. Watching my parents live this life, I don't want that. Right.
Yeah.
Or I have found that the only problem that is consistent in my life is myself. And so therefore it is the me that I have to work on. And so I've started doing that. And now all of a sudden there's this other space in my mind that can almost observe my own hurt feelings, my own hurt thinking, my own fear of lacking in money, lacking in time, lacking in love, that can observe the thinking that in the past has set me up for pain.
Yeah, yes. I mean, one of the things I did is, oh my goodness. I can't think of what it's called right now, but I would just go into a deep, deep meditative state,
Okay.
and I would have like a guided meditation that I would that would have me imagine myself with my perfect life, with enough money, with all the friends that love me for me and not because of money. You know, there's a lot of reasons why people are afraid to have money, and it might be that people want to use you, or they want to steal from you, or they only like you because you have it, or whatever. So
Right.
I would go into this deep meditative state through this guided process daily for 21 days. I did it, and I'd go deep, and every single time I would imagine myself with my perfect life, those demons would show up. I would see them and I would hear them.
I'm
It was
railing.
observation, and until you can, they're going to win.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that you can like calm them down, because those voices they're generational. They're deep within the DNA, I think, so it takes a lot to change it. And so you can't fight. They're stronger, they'll win, but you can, kind of find out, get curious, like, well, what is it that you're afraid of? What would happen? If, like, one of my fears was, what if I make money and then lose it all? Or people sue us. And it's like, well, what would happen? Well, then, maybe you would live in a van and surf every day. It's like, oh,
Oh,
okay,
okay.
that would be okay. Like,
That is
so
precious. No, keep talking, because that's precious. It's important. What you're saying is cornerstone to being able to do your own, to shift the mindset. People are like, oh, shift the mindset, shift the mindset. And I think they get tired of hearing it, because it's like,
Yeah.
have you tried shifting your mindset? Do you have any idea how hard that is? It's like,
Yeah.
well, actually we do. Actually we do. But also how, like, yeah, you tell me, do my affirmations, do my meditations. Okay, that's fine. But my mind's still yelling at me. Now what? Right?
Yeah, journaling. I mean, all of these things, it takes an army of of effort, because these are, like I said, it's almost ingrained in you. I was the youngest of five. My dad was a dentist and made actually a very good income, but there were five of us, and so he was self-employed, and he ended up having an illness. So I didn't grow up poor by any means, but I also didn't have money. I had to wear the hand-me-downs from all my sisters, and they were all ugly clothes that I had to wear 5 times, by the time they got to me.
Yep.
So there were just, things growing up that, and conversations I'd hear, and Christianity. I grew up in a very Christian home, and there was this, a lot of biblical, things that sounded like, well, you don't want to be wealthy, you won't find the kingdom of God, or whatever, And so these were deeply ingrained, and it took journaling on my thoughts after the meditation of like, oh, wow, what was that thought? Where did that come from? Who gave me that? And is it true? And do I accept it? And where's evidence of something different? And so then also hanging around people who have what I wanted and had the lifestyle I wanted. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I wanted to raise my kids, and I wanted to help my husband and get him off the treadmill. It's like, I know there's a secret out there, and I will find it. So it started with that. Like I said, Rich had to focus 100% on getting better, and all thoughts had to be in that direction. And for me, it was like, I will find the solution to our finances, and I will find enough money to not only cover our expenses, but to have more.
I love the story, because it's, we hear the story of Kathy a lot. We lead with that, and it's not a complaint. It's not it's not even a concern. It's just, Jay Massey has his story. I have my story. You have your story. What is it that went from a sense of failure to a sense of success? right? And we tell the story. I tell the story happily because, and I'm even getting more and more loud about that, telling the story happily because I think people, my hope is, and I think your hope is, it empowers others who feel like they're in that state of, oh, I'm failing, I'm scared, I'm worried, I'm overwhelmed, to go, but somebody else did it. Kathy did it. Kathy went from being a mom who stayed at home with her kids and having a husband that was facing potential death through cancer, didn't know what the final result was going to be. And you went, no, no, the world is not going to define me in this moment. I am going to define me in this moment. And that raising up of the absolute fury and dedication and passion is the moment where the transition starts. Jay Massey had that moment. I've had that moment. You've had that moment. You know, there's so many people, and I'm going to interview Stephen. I can't remember Stephen's last name, but I'm going to interview Stephen, and he has had that moment. People have had that moment where you just go, no. All of this, I used to call it psychic violence. All this personal psychic violence that I put myself through is going to stop. And I used to wake up in the morning and I would journal. Every time I woke up, I would journal. I wouldn't leave the bed. I would stay in the bed and I would journal. And I would journal about my fears. I would journal about my concerns. I journal about my anxiety. I journal about feeling overwhelmed, my doubts about myself as a human being. And I would journal and journal and journal. And I did this for months. Right? And I was already doing personal growth and had been doing personal growth for years and continue to do it now because it's a way of life, right? So the journaling is powerful. The not turning away from the screaming, but turning right towards the screaming and going, I hear you. Let's talk.
Yes. What are you screaming about?
What are you
Yeah.
screaming about?
Yeah. What are you afraid of? What are you concerned of? And the more you ask, it starts to dissolve. It's kind of like the genuine fear of a child that there's a monster under the bed. Like they really believe it, and then you turn the light on, they look and it's not there. So that's the best way to look at it, is like just turn the light on it and examine it. Look around, like what is this really?
Yeah. Oh, I love that because it's that moment we can't give to people, but we can acknowledge it and be the voice when they get there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and it doesn't really end. Where life is a personal growth experience. So once you get to a certain level, you'll get tested again, and there'll be a new fear you didn't know existed. It's kind of like doing Pilates. I feel like I'm a pretty athletic person, and then I did Pilates. I'm like, oh, there's a whole new set of muscles I didn't know I had.
or needed, or
needed.
Yeah.
Like, okay, wow. So it's like there's next levels of everything, and you know, it's another opportunity for growth. There always is one, but when you do have that foundation of, okay, what's the best outcome for this? What can I attract to me to get through this? Some of the personal growth workshops that Rich and I did, you would actually go into a workshop in your mind, and again, deep meditative state, and bring in the most brilliant people you can think of to be there in your counsel, giving you advice of like, how do you get through this? What would they advise you of, including your future self, your wise future self that's already gotten through it, to be at that table and get answers. It's just amazing what we can tap into.
Thank you for that. That's personally powerful for me because I know of that, but I haven't done that. And I'm building my counsel right now in my mind, and I had not included my future self. So thank you for that. I have other selves in there that I want to tap into, whether it's their resilience, their knowledge, their dedication, their integrity, right? I have other selves at that table, but I do not have my future self. I consider myself, like, one of the things I talk about is the fear of death. Completely random thought, but I think you'll appreciate this. One of the things I talk about is the fear of death. Are you afraid to die? And I'm a little like, no, actually I'm not. Not that I want to. I'm not saying I want to die right now. I'm just saying I'm not really afraid of it because I feel like I've come so far in my life and I'm so grateful for what I've gotten to that I sincerely believe I've done all I can to get to where I am today, that I don't have a lot of regrets of things. I know I've done things wrong. I know things have messed up. I know there are different choices I might make in the future. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I'm content and proud of myself, maybe one could say, of where I've gotten to so far in this life. So if I was taken out tomorrow, I'd be a little like, it was a life lived pretty well. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. All right. Like I would accept it, if that makes sense. Like that's my,
Yeah.
so I have no fear of death. But it's again, it's based on this sort of self-reference, right? The self-reference.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure exactly how I got there other than, I feel like I'm pretty successful, but there's more. There's more. I'm not done.
Yeah.
I'm not done on this planet. Like I don't want to die. I don't want to disappear. None of that. But I'm not done. I'm
Yeah.
54. I got a lot of freaking years ahead of me. I got a
You
lot of
sure
work
do.
to still get done on this planet. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into the real estate part soon, but I will say that I
We
did
will?
have a near-death experience. I fell down the stairs in the middle of the night
Tell me.
at our last house, and we hadn't put the railings on yet. And I was half asleep, and Rich found me just at the bottom of the stairs, head first, scorpion, like legs over the head, just in a puddle of blood,
Wow.
and did not know what to do. But I came to, and I was like, oh my gosh, it was the most beautiful experience. And I was like, I was like, oh, I just want to go back there into the arms of the angel that was just holding me. And then I saw my husband and was like, why are you covered in blood? He's like, it's not my blood, honey. But at the same time, my daughter, we called her shortly after, and she said, my youngest, she said, Mom, I just had the weirdest dream that you fell and you were going to heaven. And I said, no, I'm not done with you yet. You have to come back. I'm still too young. You have to come back. And apparently my spirit said, okay, I'll come back and raise you. So I'm not done either, but I'm not afraid of death either, because it was so
Clearly.
beautiful. And now I just am happy for people when they go to that beautiful place. It's lovely.
Yeah, it's amazing, and you can start to tap into some of that in your meditations. I mean, you're making me cry because of course, I have a daughter and she's 13, and she really needs raising. She really needs, not that she's not, of course, she's not, of course. I mean, she's reached that point where I look at her and I look at her personality and I go, you're pretty well set. You're where you need to be you. That's cool. Not that she doesn't have issues. Not that she's not going to have to go to therapy.
Yeah.
My joke is I'm saving today for the therapy she's going to need. But I'm just saying, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, her core personality is, I think, as she would want it to be for herself. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so even though she's 13, I look at her and I go, yeah, you've that core bit is settled, but there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of movement. But it just makes me cry, because I really do believe in that. I really do believe that you were lifting out of your body going, hey, I'm good. Thanks.
I'm good. This is lovely.
This is lovely. Let's go home. Let's go home.
Yeah.
Whatever home is, whatever your version of home is, whether home to God, home to Buddha, home to whatever. Pick your version of whatever it is. And you heard that it was not time to go because somebody on earth still needed you. And you're like, okay.
And I'm so glad. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah. So we can get back to real estate, but I think that the mindset piece is so powerful and potent. I have a book I'm going to work on, or I am working on. I have the outline for it already. And one of the things I have is the deeper the pain, the higher you need to go in your understanding.
Yeah.
The deeper whatever has happened to you, the higher and deeper you need to go into your understanding of yourself and this world, right? And what it is and what it's not.
Yeah. And in the personal growth workshop where I met my husband, and I was, very much in the, like I said, the scarcity mindset that you have to do things this way and work till you're 65 and hope, whatever, just the traditional way of doing things. One of the exercises we had to do was, the goal was to get to the other side of the room. Like everybody, all 100 people need to get to the other side of the room. It's a big room, ballroom.
Yep.
And, but everyone needs to do it differently.
Yeah.
So the first person walked, right? Easiest way. Second person's like, okay, I'll run. Next person's like, well, what do I do? So they somersault. The next person, skipped.
Right.
And the next person crawled. There were 100 ways to get across the room. And at the end, we all stood there together. So the detail of how to become wealthy, how to create passive income, there are 100 ways. Everybody listening can do it a different way. If you don't have the intention to get to the other side of the room, then you won't. So that's like 99% of it is to have that clear intention and desire. And there are a million ways. So the to-dos, you'll find yours. But
the
clarity must be there.
Clarity has to be the choice. And the same is true in investing in real estate as it is in your mindset. All right. So tell me though, because okay, here you go. We're back to the questions. Tell me why you were doing these interviews. Tell me why you chose real estate as your breakthrough to your financial freedom.
They told me, it was the interviews. It was there was really one way that people made their money, and it was business. And many of the people I interviewed had started some kind of business that they had automated, and that automated business was spitting out cash flow every month. For many people, that automated business was real estate because it's kind of an easy one. You can have a lot of employees, or you can have a lot of houses, right? And those houses are like your workers, right? They work for you. And when it's treated like a business, they are giving you cash flow every month. So it was just really, number one was a business. And when your real estate is treated like a business where you're not so hands-on, it's an investment, again, like training an employee that does the thing, does what you need that employee to do. But this employee happens to be a roof and walls and so forth. And so it was really interesting because I had been self-employed, and so was my husband. And we worked a lot. And it was like, oh, wait, no, this is a business where you are not the one working. You have trained people to do every phase of every job so that you are just overseeing it. So whatever that business is, there were people with laundromats, there were people making gadgets for medical devices or whatever. There were all kinds of ways. But if it wasn't real estate, somehow those profits from these automated businesses ended up in real estate. Yeah. So that was kind of the end game. And, the more I learned, well, like, why? Oh, tax benefits? Really? Really? You get benefits for this? Yeah. And asset protection? Wow. Leverage? You're kidding. I tried to get a loan when I was self-employed. Forget about it. Go to get a loan for a property? No problem. So it's just like all the things. And then, again, a tenant who needs whatever kind of real estate you're offering pays that debt off for you. So the reasons just was like, okay, I really get this. It made a lot of sense to me. I didn't have the energy or knowledge to do flips or wholesaling or, some of the kind of cool things and tricky things that people do. But it was like, okay, I can buy a house and rent it out. I could do that.
Exactly. Like really, the threshold to entry is really pretty simple.
It really was. Like, it was like, I get it. And this makes so much sense. And I'm just going to keep it simple. Had I just done that, I think my life, I would have had a lot less of the things we talked about at the beginning of the show, a lot less of the losses, of the challenges. If I had just stuck with that simple little thing of buy a house every year, maybe rent it out, buy as many as you can, rent it out. Instead, I thought I needed to complicate it. And I got into development. I wanted to try everything, but that's how I am. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I just needed to try it. A lot of those things were hard, and I learned a lot. So I could be on a lot of podcasts because I could talk about all sorts of things. But had I just stuck with that simple old, just buy houses and rent them out, I'll tell you what, it would have been an easier path. So, but I guess I'm here to learn, Christina.
And we share that, right? You and I share that as well, right? We've had paths that we've gone down. I've done flips, and I've done, condo conversions and lot splits and, condo hotels. I've done all these things. And in the last, there's these crises that we go through. Do it right. Real estate does well. Real estate doesn't do well. Who you are in the middle is the thing that defines it, not these brackets on either side. It's doing well, it's doing badly. Those cannot define us, right? Because if we let them define us, then we're going to choose this. We're going to choose the bad.
Yeah.
Right? And if we choose just the good, well, then we're going to fall on our head, and the bad's going to say, hey, 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 hello, 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 hello.
Got some lessons for you.
Yeah, I got some lessons for you. And if you choose just the bad, then the same thing. You get determined. You have this self-fulfilling prophecy. Your negative mindset gets determined to fulfill itself and prove itself right.
Yes.
So we have to be the space in the middle, right? And so, but yeah, kinesthetic learner. I have finally decided that it is my need to show off that gets me in trouble. It's whenever that thing shows up inside me that goes, yeah, that'll be fancy or that'll look good, that I'm like, yeah, okay, we're letting go of let go of the deal.
Yes.
Like, just don't set yourself up. All right, so what do you feel like in your history prepared you for being successful today, whether it was a mindset thing or an actual deal? What in your history prepared you to help you be successful today?
Honestly, I would say my marriage, because Rich I would say I have a little bit of a negativity bias where I actually had a brain scan done, and I have an entrepreneur brain, which entrepreneurs generally see what's wrong because then they say, wow, I could create this and make that better. So it's a great thing, and can be a moneymaker. But I will be the person sitting on the beach complaining that there's nobody with cold water, or there's nowhere to get cold water. And then I'll be like, oh, I should do that business. And so
here, have some cold water.
But what my husband, there it is.
Here, have some cold water.
I've got it here.
There you go.
So he has been very, very good at helping me look for the positive, look for the gift, look for the opportunity. I find lots of opportunities. I'm great at that. But if it doesn't go well, because sometimes it doesn't, then I would wallow in sorrow and cry, and all the feminine side of me would just weep and feel weak. And he would help me lift myself up and look for the opportunity, look for the solution. I guess you could call that more the masculine side, masculine energy of just get up and get after it. You're going to be okay. And again, worst case, we live in a van and we go surfing all day.
Yeah, I know. Worst case. Here's mine. I keep telling people this, and I'm like, my worst case, if I'm done, is I'm going to move to the Midwest and work at Denny's. That's mine.
And you'd be probably very happy.
I'm going to be very happy. Move to the Midwest, work at Denny's. That's my backup plan. But all else gets too hard, you'll find me at Denny's. Because I used to go to Denny's at 2:00 in the morning, right? So I have this bond with Denny's that, people are always surprised about. But moving on. So,
my first job was a waitress at Denny's.
I actually never worked as a waitress at Denny's. I worked as a receptionist for 4 Persian brothers. That was a whole dynamic unto itself. But moving on. So what is the secret sauce of your company then? How does your company do something really well based on your history and experience?
Oh, that's such a great question. I think it's making things easier for people. So we will go out, test a market. We will do our due diligence on it. We will find a great team and then share that with our members at Real Wealth. So I think it's the learning from the lessons of me being someone who likes to jump into things and realizing, wow, I probably should have done a little more research, or I should have talked to a few more property managers. We do that, and then we present those results, whether it's data, information on markets, background on, background checks on different property managers or whatever. We share that with our members. So I think that is what we bring, is information and education to make it easier for people.
Well, I will also, if I may offer, you also bring experience.
And experience, yes.
Right. And experience, education. I mean, again, I love the generosity of the Real Wealth Network. I love how you guys do focus on education, that it isn't just, gee, trust me. It's, let me educate you. Let me grow you as a professional in the field. Let me help you understand the dynamics and that data, that strong data-driven, like you just did at FIBI. Thank you so much. Oh, the Kathy Fettke has shown up at the FIBI. Thank you so much for that. It was wonderful having you there. And I can't tell you how many of the volunteers were like, "Oh, Kathy's so cool," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know, she's really cool."
Oh,
And she
thank you
gave us
so
so
much.
much information. I'm like, she's
I
just,
loved that.
I
They were
know.
so sweet. Everybody there was wonderful.
That's good. All right, so I think part of the secret sauce of your company is that you guys also lend your sense of experience
Yes.
in the advice that you give and the sense of direction that you offer, right?
And I don't want people to trust me because that was my weakness, is I trusted everybody and found out that there's a lot of people in real estate you really shouldn't trust, not because they're not trustworthy, but maybe they just don't know.
Mhm.
You've really got yourself to rely on. And so in the beginning, people would latch on to me and trust me too much. And then they would go buy a property from a team that I recommended, but because they trusted me, they wouldn't do their due diligence. They wouldn't get an appraisal or inspection. And so I came to a point where I was like, please don't trust me.
Yes.
Trust the research, trust the process that you need to go through. That you can trust.
Yeah.
The checklist.
Mhm. Mhm. And don't skimp on the. I mean, it really is very basic. Don't skimp on the checklist. Like, you don't
Yeah.
really want to do that. And
Yeah.
I have to agree. Okay, so right now, you're primarily in single family. That's really what you guys offer, but in multiple states. Right now, what do you feel like is happening in your industry? What do we need to know?
It's the same anytime, any season that we're in. Don't trust the headlines, and I say that as somebody who wrote them,
Mhm.
and it was on TV quoting them. Headlines are meant to scare you. They're meant to get your attention. It's harder and harder to get your attention because there's so many news outlets now. When I started in the news business, there were 5, and then cable came, and then the internet. And this is aging me, but this is how it is. When I was in the news business, if it bleeds, it leads. It had to be a scary headline. Nobody really, as much as people say they want good news, they're really attracted to the bad news. That's where their eyeballs go. So be careful about headlines. Don't ignore them or dive deeply into the information.
Mhm.
So what I want to tell you is that usually you need to do the opposite of of the headlines.
So you were saying the things that you're facing is the same all the time, which is don't believe the bad news. You just don't really
Well,
want to get yourself anchored in that.
there could be bad news, but make sure that you really understand it. For example, some of the headlines on Office is true, right? It's like
Yeah,
it's
that's accurate. It's
that's
accurate
accurate.
bad news.
Yeah, that's accurate. But just dive in and make sure you really understand the data behind the headlines. I would say that's the most important thing. And for years, it's been wrong, and for years I have done the opposite of what headlines would say,
Mhm.
and also understanding that the headlines are kind of targeted towards the audience, which is maybe the first time home buyer or somebody. So when you see something that says housing affordability is the worst ever, that's true, and that's really horrible for the buyer. But what does that mean for you? That
Mhm.
means that probably there's a lot of demand for rents, and you can solve that problem. You can be someone who solves this issue of people not being able to afford a place to live by providing an affordable place to live. And that's really been our purpose at Real Wealth. It's like, of course, we're helping people create their retirement plan through rental properties, but you know what else we're doing? We're offering really clean, safe housing that's affordable
Right.
in areas where it's needed.
Right.
And that's a beautiful purpose to have. And we're good landlords that treat our tenants well. So anyway, yeah, you just have to look at it and say, how can I interpret this headline in a way that benefits, all?
Yeah,
How can I solve this problem?
that's perfect. I love that suggestion. How do I interpret this headline in a way that benefits all? Because a lot of times headlines are from one point of view. And they
Yes.
don't necessarily include other points of view, and they're not always necessarily educated. Like, you know, so yeah. So and the other thing I use is a long data set. They're
Mhm.
focusing on a piece of data that is true right now, this year, this month. Oh my God, such and such has doubled. And it's like,
Yeah.
let's get the whole data set. What does that
Yeah.
really mean? What does doubling mean, right? Because I like to go back to the data. You like to go back to the data. What does doubling really mean? It's
Yeah.
doubled from 0.5% to 1% when it's normally 3%. Maybe that's not as meaningful,
Yeah.
right? Or maybe it's incredibly meaningful.
Right.
So I love that. The perspective from multiple points of view, the win-win from everybody, recognizing that more than one way is true, and the length of data. All right. We're going to be looking at upcoming recession. I don't think you and I are going to have any disagreement on that. I quote you all the time, by the way, as one of the primary sources that taught me about how when the Fed increases interest rates, basically a recession is going to be following, because it's just in the data. So I quote you for that. I credit you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, I was just like, oh man, you had it so clear. I remember the day I saw it on the board when I was watching it. I'm like, how did I miss that?
Oh, that's awesome.
Kathy's completely right. All right, so tell me how your company is going to manage this upcoming recession.
I feel like we've been through many, right? We started in 2003. It's our 20-year anniversary of Real Wealth.
No, 20
Yeah,
years.
I know. I've been doing this a
Woo-hoo!
while.
That's amazing. That's fantastic.
And coming back to the
Yeah.
original story, Rich is healthy and wonderful today.
Oh, yes.
We're very lucky.
He is. Yes.
20 years later. But so I've been through the greatest housing recession, and we pivoted. We survived. In fact, the properties that we were helping people buy at that time and the years leading up to the complete housing collapse, those properties did amazing because we were looking at different metrics, right? We had helped people get into affordable properties in growth markets where housing was needed, but these were properties that the average person could afford, and they were really nice. We update them, or we buy new, or how we want them to be nice quality properties. So when the market collapsed, well, guess what? Those properties stayed rented. People would still like a place to live. And when you have people whose credit gets destroyed because they had to go through foreclosure, well, they'd probably still like to live in a similar house. And that is so we went through that, and we didn't see any issues with those rental properties. We only saw issues with properties where we went outside of that box, like we kept a couple properties in California because I had emotional attachment to them.
Mhm.
Well, they lost 50% of their value, but my properties in Texas, they either stayed the same or went up in value, but the rents, I wasn't selling them. So it was the rents that continued to rise.
Right.
So I've been through enough. We went through COVID, and I remember when all of a sudden we had the stay-at-home order, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've encouraged thousands. I was gonna say millions. I don't want to give myself that much credit, but thousands of
At least
people.
thousands of people between your podcast and your speaking at clubs and conferences, and yes, and personally and clients.
Encouraged lots of people to buy real estate. Now I'm thinking, oh, what have I done? Now they're not going to get their rents, and so I went to that bad
Yeah.
thinking place. And then Rich is like, yeah, well, let's look at this. They probably still would like a place to live during a COVID time. And so we pivoted very quickly again and had interviewed every single property manager, a different property manager in a different city every day in March of 2020, April of 2020, May. Like, what's going on? Tell us what's going on. How are our clients doing? How are our tenants doing? And one by one, these property managers would tell us real time, I don't know why the headlines are saying what they're saying, but what we're seeing is tremendous demand. We're seeing rents go up. We're seeing people flooding for these properties. They want these properties. We have not seen any loss of payment or anything. So it was like real time, like, oh, okay. Obviously, a pandemic isn't going to stop people from wanting to live in a house, So we would just kind of find out real time what the demand is. And we've experienced the same here where, there's going to be this housing crash. Well, not in the markets that we're in, because we looked at the data in advance. This is where there's job growth. This is where there's population growth. People are leaving high-priced, high-tax markets, and they're going to these low-tax, low-cost markets.
That's true.
So
that is the current trend.
That's the trend. So going into a recession is still yet to be seen. We haven't seen it yet. The GDP is coming out, and it looks like a normal GDP. So far, the Fed has, slowed certain things down. Certainly realtors, mortgage brokers, they're affected. There's a recession in certain industries, without a doubt. But overall, the US GDP and the US economy is still pretty strong. And the markets that we invest in are really strong. Data's coming out that the markets that we're in actually have seen home prices go up 5%, and rents go up 5%. So heading into this, we're just sticking with the fundamentals, which is investing in areas with a strong, diverse economy. So that if one economy is affected, if one industry is affected, there's plenty of others. I learned that lesson going into like a North Dakota where it was completely dependent on oil.
Right.
Bad idea. So,
Good to know. Thanks. Don't do condo
yeah.
tells. Just let me share you that one with you. Don't do condo tells, and I won't invest in North Dakota.
What was that?
I said, don't invest in condo tells. It's a condo hotel.
Yes.
Don't do condo tells. Don't invest in North Dakota. Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Just in an industry, an area that's dependent on one industry has more, potential for a downturn.
Period. It's more vulnerable.
Right?
Just is.
Yeah. So I'm not at all worried. I've been through enough of these times to know that we have the demographics are telling us that there's a huge amount of people who are starting families, would like to form a household, would like to live in a home, whether they own it or rent it. And, we can provide that. And there's just simply not enough inventory out there. So we're also building. I'm still in the building business, bringing on new inventory.
Yep. Okay. Tell me about a deal that went right and how did you set it up for success?
Oh gosh. Well, like I said, when I first started, I had Robert Kiyosaki on that show, The Real Wealth Show, many years ago, 20 years ago. And he was kind of explaining what I'm explaining today, which is follow the job growth, follow the population growth, and where it's still affordable, where the average person can still afford to live there. So we jumped on a plane. Rich and I came back with 5 brand new homes. We paid retail. I mean, maybe just slightly under retail, but no great discount. But we knew that they were good quality properties and good school districts near jobs, and that there would be demand, and the numbers worked. I think we paid $130 to $150 for those brand new homes, and they rented for between $1,400 and $1,600 a month. It just made sense.
Yeah, fundamentals work.
Just bought 5 of them, went back, bought 5 more. So that strategy was fabulous. I will say we did it. We did really well on that.
Okay. Tell me about a deal that went wrong. How did you fix it? What did you learn?
Yes. There's so many. Well,
here's the thing. There are so many deals that have gone right that it's almost hard to sort. You just well, okay, let's start with the first one. And then there's then there was my investment in Knoxville, Tennessee. And then there was my investment in Virginia. And then there was my land in Hawaii that worked great. And then, there were things that went really well. Right. Yep. And so I just want people to understand when you say, oh, there's so many, it's yeah, but we could say the exact same thing about things that went right. There are so many,
yes.
Right? After 20 years of doing this, there are so many. So I just want to put that in there. So now tell me about a deal that went wrong.
That. So there were a lot of really smart things that we did. Just to, I would say, based on what we're seeing today, the mistakes I made were investing in things I didn't truly understand.
Yeah.
So, I syndicated 2 apartment buildings. That one was, it was old, and the pipe burst, and we had to clear it out. Everybody had to leave overnight, had to pay them to leave. Then the city came in and required a lot more work than we thought was needed, but you got to do it to get the CO. I had to negotiate with the bank, hey, you know what? You can have this back. We don't want it. I told the investors we're probably going to lose everything on this. Are you okay with me just handing it back to the bank? They were fine with it. The bank's like, no, we don't want it.
So no, we don't want it. No, don't make
the loan way down. I was able to get, 70% of the investors' money back because we were able to kind of pull through. But that was really, really hard. Big lesson of just old apartment buildings.
Yeah.
You better have a lot of reserves. You better really understand what you're buying and what potential CapEx you have, and have the money for it. Have it ready.
Love it. So what you learned, know what you're buying, stay in your lane, be knowledgeable in it, have a lot of reserves, and be ready for your CapEx.
Yeah.
All right. What does financial freedom mean to you? We're doing all this work to get what I call the vision in our head, the financial freedom. What does it mean to you, financial freedom?
I've thought about this so many times, and I think it does change actually. But for me, when my kids were little, it meant being able to be with them for the important things. I traveled a lot. I was building a company. I was gone a lot. But my kids are healthy and wonderful, and they're like my best friends. So how did I do that? It was because the financial freedom at the time, even though I was working my butt off, was that I could choose my hours, and I would be at that soccer game, and I would be at that dance recital, and I had the power to choose. I loved working. I was passionate about it, but I knew I could control my calendar. Like I said, I didn't have that ability when I was in the news business. They owned me and they owned my schedule. And I couldn't have asked for time off to go to a recital, So that growing up, that was the most important thing. Now that I'm an empty nester, it's really, having the time to be with my grandchild and have not the way Rich puts it. And I love this is I'm retired from the things I don't like doing.
Okay.
I love working,
Right.
But I'm retired from the stuff I don't want to do. So I get to do stuff like this and talk to you, and I love it. But I've got someone else doing the accounting, terrible at it.
Yeah.
The underwriting, not so good at it. I've got really good people to do those things, right?
Yeah.
And I still control my schedule. I still can take a month off and take the kids to Europe if I want to.
Yeah.
But I don't think for me, it's not sitting on a beach all day with a Corona, like that. No, that I would get bored. In fact, we can't go on vacation and just do that. We're usually writing a book or doing something,
or doing a personal growth workshop or digging in someplace, Yeah. Kathy, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for who you are as a human being. Thank you for being my friend. As our budding friendship has been growing, I so appreciate the authenticity that we share back and forth as two women in this field, really trying to make a difference, not just for our clients, but within the field itself. And at least I feel like I observe you trying to do that. And I know I have that agenda as well. So I respect that deeply in you about who you're choosing to be. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. How do people get a hold of you, Kathy?
So easy to find at realwealth.com. My syndication company is growdevelopments.com. And then, of course, The Real Wealth Show and Real Estate News podcasts.
Which is an amazing podcast and has a depth of knowledge in it because you are a very good interviewer. No great surprise since that's where you started. This is Christina Suter on Real Estate Breakthrough. Tune in 2 weeks for your next show. You can find us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, as well as Amazon TV, Apple TV, and YouTube. And did I say YouTube? I think I said YouTube. So Apple TV, whatever. Fact is, thank you so much. Huh?
Everywhere.
Basically anywhere and everywhere. Just type it in. Real Estate Breakthrough. See you in 2 weeks.